Hello, teachers. Hello! A very warm welcome to another TT Live session. Welcome to another TT Live session. It's so good to see you all here, please. Write in the chat where you are watching this live from and share the link to this live with your fellow teachers so that we can keep learning more and more together. A very warm welcome to everyone in this live session. I'll be keeping an eye on the comments, okay? Just a reminder, this live is being automatically translated, so this is the translation into your language. If you have any questions or comments, you can use the comments section right here on the side of YouTube. So you can write there and we'll help you out, okay? Well, everyone, as you know TT, she does these live sessions, which are free live streams, free classes, free trainings every week live here on TT's YouTube channel. So a very warm welcome. If you want to check out our live from last week, it's available. And next week we'll be here at the same time on the same day with another live session with a different topic and focusing on a new TT tool, a material, a completely different idea every week. So I'm keeping an eye on the comments here, and if you're watching this live on Instagram or Facebook, come over to YouTube. That way I can see your comments too, because here I can actually see what you write. Teachers, today's live is about how to create adapted activities in minutes using artificial intelligence. This topic is very important because we know that with each passing day, our students face more and more difficulties in their learning journey. So creating adapted activities is very important, especially when we can create these adapted activities in minutes with the help of artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is here nowadays to support us exactly with this kind of task, this kind of challenge. And teacher, in today's live, I'm going to use Teach. Teach is an AI platform created especially for teachers, where you will find everything from lesson plans and activities that follow your city, country, and school curriculum to tools that will help you organize and prepare each of your classes. Teachers, I'm going to take a look at the chat here and take the opportunity to answer some questions, okay? I received a question asking if Teach is free. Yes, Teach is free. But if you, like me, need and like to create a lot of materials at the same time, for example, I have a class with 20 students, I need to create various materials, 5 subjects, I need to make several slides, I use Teach Premium. So, if you're like me and enjoy creating a lot of materials, today I have a special discount for those who are in this live session, which is a coupon for 10% off on the monthly and annual plans. And teachers, as you know, in today's live session, you're going to learn in practice how to use Teach's tools for different profiles and students, how to create personalized adaptations with quality and pedagogical intentionality. And we'll also answer questions live and look at real examples of application in the classroom. A few important announcements for you, teachers. The form to receive your certificate will be here in the comments of the live session, okay? At the end. So at the end, I will explain again how to claim your certificate for free. And the certificate link will be in the pinned comment here on YouTube when the live ends. So if you need to leave and come back, or if you want to watch this live tomorrow, that's no problem, because the certificate form will stay pinned here for you. So teachers, shall we start our content? Well, today we're going to talk about how to create inclusive activities with AI that really work. And teacher, if you want to open TIT on your computer or your phone, let's do it together, okay? So I'll give you a moment to open TIT on your computer or your phone so we can work together. Well, teacher, here is TIT. This is the screen you'll see as soon as you enter Teach. And here you can explore. There's a lot of interesting stuff to check out. By clicking, you have access to more than 60 tools, all ready for you to use. You can use them not only in your classroom, but also to organize and plan your lessons. You can even plan your entire year of classes. There are activities like flashcards, which are really interesting, and even chemistry worksheets, that is, chemistry and math worksheets. and anything else you can imagine. Teachers, I encourage all of you to take some time to explore Teach, especially the specific features that might be of interest to you, such as lesson planning, the specific tools for language teachers, for art teachers, the creation of tests and automatic grading, which saves us a lot of time in our daily routine. But, well, now when we talk about inclusive activities, it's important to keep in mind that inclusive activities actually start outside of artificial intelligence, even outside of the computer. The first step when we talk about in creating inclusive activities for our students is first to analyze what skills the student has and what skills the student needs to have in order to do an activity. For example, let's say the activity involves reading and interpreting a text. Does this student who has any kind of learning difficulty know how to read and interpret a text? If the answer is yes, do they still have any kind of restriction? For example, let's say a student with autism or an intellectual disability who doesn't understand metaphors and only understands things literally, can't grasp any metaphors, and can't follow texts that are very long or have very complex grammatical structures. How could we work in this case? Well, in this sense, by clicking on more than 60 tools, and in the accessibility area on the left sidebar, you can see that there are several tools that can help us in this case. But at this moment, I will use the tool called Text Accessibility, where you can choose the type of accessibility to be used. Would it be to highlight information? Would it be to break the text into smaller parts? Convert the text into a bullet list? Add clearer subheadings and headings? Or simplify the language? I chose all the options, but it will definitely depend on the needs of your student or your students. And here you will enter the text. I am going to use a text created by artificial intelligence itself. That way we can get an idea in different types of subjects. For example, in this case, the example is a text about photosynthesis. And it's actually a very dense text with a very complex grammatical structure. Shall we see what the result of this text will look like in an accessible format? By clicking the yellow button, you'll get your result in a few seconds. Meanwhile, if you have any kind of question, you can leave it in the comments and I'll take a look, okay? Well, here we are. Do you remember that we marked all the accessibility points? Which means highlighting the main idea, using bullet points, breaking the text into smaller parts. So that text, which had a very complex grammatical structure, is now completely easy to understand. Here you can see that it's very well broken down, it's very well detailed, and uses language that's much easier to understand. So it has all the details the student needs to know, and at the end, there's even a quick bullet summary, a quick summary of the main ideas from the text. And this activity, this tool, can be used for various types of situations. For example, if you're going to give your class a text that's very complex, specifically for one student, so you can first encourage this student to highlight the main ideas of the text with a highlighter or a pen without taking over the entire reading, and then use this tool to compare what main ideas the student understood and what this tool presents as ideal, as accessibility. This is a really great idea to implement, even as a form of assessment for students who need accessible activities. Well, let's say then that the student can't read and can't interpret the text, so the difficulty in making an activity accessible becomes much greater in this case. So it's necessary to use other activities with shorter text or even more visual resources. So let's do an example now of an activity that can even be used as a test, as an assessment, as an exam, as a way to evaluate a student who needs more visual resources and has reading difficulties, for example. So in practice, let's use an assessment tool. a simple tool that is widely used. By clicking on More 60 Tools here and going to the left sidebar, clicking on Assessments, you will then find the tool called Exam, which is for creating exams as an assessment. In this sense, you can create assessments on any subject. Here I'm going to create an English language assessment for the 6th grade, and the topic will be grammar. Personal pronouns. In this sense, I can still choose the level of difficulty here before creating the tool, as well as the number of questions, in addition to whether the questions will be written or multiple choice. By clicking the yellow button, in just a few seconds you'll have your result. And if you have any questions, you can leave them here in the comments and I'll be happy to help you. All done in just a few seconds. We have our assessment. But as I showed you, we entered the activity, went into the assessment tool, and created an assessment. This assessment is not accessible yet, up until now. So after we create an assessment within TIT, we need to make it accessible. And when we talk about making it accessible, you can also make it easier, harder, add an image, add a text, add a new question. So here, as you can see by clicking the edit button, I can click the button. Making it simpler will simplify the vocabulary, will simplify the question, truly making the assessment accessible. In just a few seconds, our assessment will be accessible. Of course, you can also easily add many other diverse types of activities within this specific assessment, as well as incorporating various other types of helpful educational resources for your students. So right here we have two distinct options to consider: the original, more complex question and this brand new version of the question, which is actually much easier to understand, meaning it is far more accessible for a student who might need some extra academic support, intellectual support during an assessment. And right here in this section, you can also easily add your own personal photos, simply by clicking the button to upload a high-quality image. By doing this, you can make your entire assessment even more accessible and engaging for everyone involved. You can also change the rubric, make it easier, increase or decrease the level, and also adjust the score for each question. This assessment is fully customizable. You can also add a new question, either by choosing one from our question bank, generating it with AI, or creating it manually. And in this way, you turn a regular assessment into an accessible one. However, let's say you want to create an assessment without any text at all, where you really need a very visual resource. We have an idea that might be perfect for you, which is actually a word search or a crossword puzzle. At this point, we're going to use the crossword puzzle. Imagine for a moment that we want to design a custom crossword puzzle to serve as a helpful assessment tool for a student who is currently having a lot of difficulty with memorizing or learning specific scientific terms about the planets in our solar system. So, for this particular project, I will first choose the overall theme, and then I can carefully select each of the individual words one by one to fit the criteria. Or I can even write my own words by clicking the yellow button. In a few seconds, I'll have my material ready and complete. So as you can see, our material is already done. And how could I use it as an assessment? Simple, very simple. Assessments can be made up of word searches, they can be entirely composed of word searches, or just a part of the assessment. You can include a word search or a crossword puzzle, for example. So here we have our crossword puzzle and the answers. And also down here, each of the clues. And in this sense, Let's see how it would be then to create as an assessment, not just the crossword puzzle, but also the word search. Let's set it to very easy or easy, the number of words and the topic. Let's say we're studying the topic of the solar system. And in just a few seconds, we have our words. And our word search is ready. In other words, yet another very fun, easy, and interesting way to create an assessment to evaluate our students. Teachers. So let's say that after we understand what the student's needs are, what skills the student has, and which ones they need to develop, our second step would then be to understand the objectives of the activity. That is, what are the prerequisites for the activity itself? Does this activity have more than one prerequisite? Can I reduce the prerequisites for an activity? For example, if the student needs to interpret a historical text that mentions different dates that are out of chronological order, and then they need to list the historical facts from the text, and after that they need to put these actions in chronological order. Is this sequence of actions too complex for my student, or do they have this skill? Because what the student essentially needs to show me with this skill is, what is it? What does the student need to show me? What kind of skill do they need to demonstrate when doing this activity? So in practice, if the most important thing is for them to recognize the historical facts in the order they happened, I can prioritize that by using the adapted assignment tool. So by clicking on More and then 60 tools in the left sidebar and clicking on Adapted Assignments, you then have your tool here. Let's say I want to create an activity about the Cold War. I don't want them to mention dates, just historical facts, so the student can recognize and put them in chronological order. Shall we write this out? So I'm going to write it here. Exactly what I just told you. Done. So for this, it's necessary to use this material customization field, showing how it should be adapted. In this sense, I'm going to select all the options again, but you can choose the option that best fits the needs of your album. And by clicking the yellow button, in just a few seconds, it will be completely ready. There we go. Here we have our activity. As you can see here, the objective of the activity is to recognize the historical events of the Cold War. To put them in the correct sequence, don't use dates, just facts. And there's also a short step-by-step guide on how to do this activity. Read each event, put them in order. Write the numerical sequence for each event. Step-by-step instructions. First read, second think, third order, fourth check. And here, the entire list of events with very accessible language, and even a follow-up task, which would be to order and explain, to identify the cause and effect of each of the events, to classify them, and even a short answer reflection, a brief reflection, and even some tips for the student. And some tips for the teacher as well. Images, which are very important when we talk about accessible activities. So I really like this example. I'm going to show you one more example of how we can work with this. All right? So among more than 60 tools, if you look, you'll find a tool called Fill in the Blank. So, let's say the student needs to do an activity where they have to read, interpret, and identify the context of a sentence. You can also use this tool when you want to connect it to the word that represents each context. You can even create a version without giving the context to the student, or create another version by providing the context to the student. Let's say the student doesn't understand metaphors and only interprets everything literally. They wouldn't be able to follow very long texts or those with very complex grammatical structures. So, tools like these are very important. For instance, let's say we are looking for very specific words and terms related to the Cold War, which can also be used as a reference point. The continuation of a text or as reading material for a text. By clicking the yellow button, in a few seconds, we'll have all our sentences. Here's the word bank, and here are our sentences. This tool is very interesting because it can also be used with texts from the teacher themselves, and it can even be used as a way to review and keep studying certain concepts. Specific terms or words that a student didn't manage to memorize or learn right away. So this is another amazing idea for you to use in your daily routine as an accessible activity. And teachers, as you saw today we learned, first of all, how to make a text accessible, how to create accessible assessments, how to use word searches, crosswords, and adapted tasks, and how to use the fill-in-the-blank tool for texts. And why are these types of activities so important, and why should we use them? Well, instead of requiring the student to create an answer from scratch, the activity relies on recognizing patterns, words, or concepts, thus directing attention to the keyword, reducing mental overload and anxiety when facing longer tests. In addition to memory and attention, word games and short challenges help with content retention and, for students with autism spectrum disorder, the repetitive and structured format can provide much more predictability and security in their learning journey. Furthermore, for students with dyslexia and ADHD, these formats offer visual cues such as blank spaces, grids, and letters that are already provided. This helps the student avoid getting lost in long texts. And teacher, if you've watched up to this point, I have some very good news for you. The link to the certificate form is already here in the comments, so you just need to click on that link, go to the form, fill in your information, and within 10 days, the certificate will be in your email. And now I want to ask you all, put it here in the chat. What was your favorite insight from today's class? And what is the next topic you would like to hear about in the next class? The next class will be next week on the same day and at the same time. So don't miss our next live session at the same time and on the same day here on TT's channel, where we'll have a different topic and theme. In addition, if you want to join our TT Teachers community to receive links to upcoming live sessions and be part of our community on Instagram and Facebook, we look forward to welcoming you with great joy in these communities. Remember that you can create these activities and send them to us, post the link here in the chat, and share it in the community. You can earn up to 400 credits per activity for each person who joins your activity. So it's another very interesting way to keep earning credits on Teach. Don't forget to leave your comment here. What was your favorite insight from today's class, and what topic would you like to see in the next class? Wishing you all a great rest of your day. I'll see you next week right here on the Teach channel. Bye-bye.